Today's lesson is the carbon cycle. So we've done about how energy is passed through food chains and how energy is actually passed amongst food webs in reality, which are a series of interconnected food chains. Then last lesson we looked at decomposition, how the energy stored within the bodies of animals that have died can still be released by decomposers such as bacteria and fungi. So we're talking about the energy passing through ecosystems. Eventually, all the energy will be lost as heat and disappear off into the universe. But the molecules with which the energy is stored in, which are passed along food chains in the form of food molecules, biological molecules, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, the atoms that these are made up of, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and sulfur for proteins, actually are cycled within ecosystems. And we're just going to look at one of those atoms today and how it takes many different forms within the ecosystem. We're going to look at the carbon cycle. So by the end of today's lesson, you need to be able to identify what processes are involved in the carbon cycle, describe the different stages of the carbon cycle, and also name different forms of carbon. So you have all learned about carbon from at least year 7, probably at primary school. I'm sure you can think of a substance which has carbon in it. Why don't you have a little think for me for a moment of a substance that has carbon in it? I imagine the one that comes to your mind to begin with is carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide molecule. So this is the carbon dioxide molecule. Its formula is CO2. Turn the subtitles off. So we've got one carbon atom and then 2 oxygen atoms, and this is what it looks like. Hopefully you remember this from chemistry. You've got the carbon atom in the middle and then an oxygen atom on either side, and they're joined with covalent bonds. Okay, this picture here is of coal. If you remember from your chemistry lessons in year 9, petroleum and other fossil fuels are made up of hydrocarbons of varying lengths, and we use fractional distillation to separate them out. A real simple hydrocarbon is ethane, and it looks like this. We've got hydrogens, C2, C2, H5. Okay, so carbon can be part of some hydrocarbons which are used for fuel. It can be part of a carbon dioxide molecule. All biological molecules have got carbon in, and this is just one example for you. This is glucose with the formula C6H12O6. And you can see this is a drawing of the structure. We've got lots of carbons here. So a little carbon atom can be part of a glucose molecule, it could be part of carbon dioxide molecule, it could be part of an alkane within petroleum or coal, or it could be part of a protein, or it could be part of a fat. There's also rocks, so limestone rocks are made from something called calcium carbonate. So we've got another carbon in there again. So carbon can be locked up in rocks. The White Cliffs of Dover are made up of calcium carbonate. So What form does carbon take in the atmosphere? So, what is carbon? What is the molecule that has carbon in it when it's all around us? And that is carbon dioxide. What process uses carbon dioxide to produce glucose? It's something that plants do. What do plants do? They take in carbon dioxide and they use it to make glucose, and then we eat the plants. What form does carbon dioxide take in organisms? So it is biological molecules that make up our cells. Biological molecules, E.G, protein. How is carbon passed from plants to animals? Through food chains. Apologies for my writing. It's not the greatest writing tool. What process produces carbon dioxide when energy is released from glucose? What is that process that releases the energy from the food that we eat that takes place inside all cells? That's right, it's respiration. You're going to be asked some similar questions to these on the next bit of the task. Give the name of the life process which describes how organisms get rid of carbon dioxide. So it's breathing is the process. And what is the life process, the characteristics of life? Mrs. Gren, where you get rid of things that you don't need. It is excretion. You breathe out the waste carbon dioxide. What is the general term for organisms which release carbon from dead organisms and waste? They are called decomposers. If dead organisms do not decay and they are subject to intense heat and pressure, what is formed? Over millions of years, we get fossil fuels. Much of the coal that was in the United Kingdom before we dug it all up and used it in the north of England and Wales was basically the forests. There was a period of time where there was huge tropical forests over the United Kingdom, and some of those didn't decay and they were just left and buried, and this formed coal. What process releases carbon? From the answer to the above question, how can we release carbon dioxide from fossil fuels? And the answer is combustion. So can you see these are all things that you should know about from chemistry? Fossil fuels, decomposers we've just done. Excretion is something you did very beginning of the course. Respiration, we've done a whole topic on respiration. Food chains we've just looked at. Biological molecules was in year 9. Photosynthesis was in year 9. So we're kind of pulling together all the things from across the course. And finally, question number 10, describe a consequence of increasing levels of carbon compounds in the atmosphere. And the answer is climate change. Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, which has also got carbon in it, trap energy within the atmosphere, which is actually really good. None of us would have evolved if it didn't, because it'd be far too cold at night. So some of the energy is kept within the atmosphere, but because there's an increase in the amount of greenhouse gases due to human activities, we're increasing that temperature, which means that things like the polar ice caps will be melting, which then causes certain places will be submerged, loss of habitat for animals, and there's lots of things. I think you do climate change on your chemistry course. So here's a picture of the carbon cycle. You're going to be drawing down a completed one from a diagram. So let's just look, we've got up here. We've got carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and that is taken in by trees through photosynthesis. We've got release energy from sugar. That is respiration. Just put a P there, photo. So when trees and animals, so this is respiration, burning fossil fuels to make electricity or warmth, for warmth, this is combustion, and it releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Carbohydrates in animals can become carbon compounds in the soil. So this could be through excretion. The animals can also die, so this is death. This is decomposition. If organisms do not become decomposed, and we looked at the last lesson reasons why they might not become decomposed, for example, low oxygen environments, acidic soils, very dry, anything which actually stops bacteria or fungi from growing, and then under intense heat and pressure, dead organisms can be turned into fossil fuels. And also carbohydrates in plants move to carbohydrates in animals through food chains. Okay, so that's bringing it all together. What you might be asked to do on exam questions is that name one of these labels. Okay. So there's a diagram on the task sheet for you to copy down into your notes, and then some questions about the different processes for you to answer. This is like a shocked face, surprised, trying to process something that seems difficult to absorb. So if oil is actually made from, so petroleum is actually made from the dead remains of dinosaurs over time, and plastic is made from oil, are plastic dinosaurs made from real dinosaurs? An interesting idea. Right.